Hi, I'm Dr. Donald DeFabio, and welcome to A Cup of Joe with Joe. Berkeley Heights' roundtable discussion with our mayor, Mayor Joe Bruno, and tonight we are having some coffee.
Yes, we are.
Mine's regular. He's got the vanilla.
As I do.
Mayor, once again, thanks for coming down, and great for the coffee. We appreciate it. A little shout out to Dunkin' Donuts in town, another local business.
Mm-hmm. My pleasure.
Now, it's a month since the third storm of the century in 2 years. Sandy's over. I think everybody lost about 2 weeks of their lives. The first 2 weeks of November just disappeared. From your perspective, let's start with the pros. What were the pros from the Sandy experience in Berkeley Heights here?
Well, you know, I think we got high marks for our communication and the improvement in communication. After last year's storm, we analyzed what we could have done better, and the glaring spot was in the area communication. So we instituted a reverse 911 that fortunately was just fully installed about 6 weeks before Sandy hit. You know, when you appropriate the money, then you have to wait till you actually bond for it. So we got it installed, and it was really a test under fire. We tested the during the storm, and between Chief Mathis and Chief Padavano, they were getting messages out almost on a daily basis to residents to let them know what was going on in the area. And a lot of people have commented that that was a great way of communication. And we'll have a meeting tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to discuss the aftermath of Sandy and you know what we've done right and what the opportunity is. The one opportunity that we do have in the area communication is to get everybody to put their cell phone numbers on it. It was such a new, you know, we said we just rolled it out. We had everybody's home phone number for the most part, even unlisted numbers we have in there. But if you were out without power, you weren't getting notified because the phone lines weren't working either, especially if you had a cordless phone. So we need people to get on our website and sign on to the police website and put your cell number. You could put as many numbers in there as you want, and we suggest you put cell phone numbers, business numbers if you have a phone at your desk, because the emergency may happen while you're at work and you should get notified of it. So we think that once we get that word out, it'll be even a better tool for us to implement. And the other good thing was, you know, a lot of people, a lot of individuals and teamwork came to the surface. I have to give a shout out to the Gulf Station in town. Mark, I don't remember Mark's last name, but Mark's the Gulf Station right in town. We commandeered that poor guy's gas for our police vehicles because we were running low on gas and diesel fuel, and he was a prince. I mean, we commandeered the station and of course paid him for it. But you know, he was gracious and he helped us out a lot. So we had a lot of businesses and a lot of people that helped us out during the storm, and it really was a community, unfortunately, that had to come together and did. But there was a lot of community spirit during the event.
Now let's go back to the reverse 911. Mm-hmm. Let's make sure that all of the residents are on board. So they should have been getting calls from Chief Mathis and Chief Padavano both through that system.
Yes.
Now, if you weren't getting them because you didn't have your cell phone, log on to the website, the police website.
Well, you log on to the township website, www.berkeleyheightstownship.com, and from there, there's a link on the left-hand side that says police. When you hit the police website, it'll come up and the information just pops right up there about the reverse 911. You go in there, you put in a password, and then you can start putting in phone numbers, as many phone numbers as you like to be notified. I would say that if you carry two cell phones, as I do, I have my personal and my township cell phone, don't put them both in because I was getting calls within 15 seconds of each other. But it's good to put on a cell phone, like I said, a business. I even have like my wife's cell phone on there, so because there's times when she's at work, and I'd like her to know that there's something going on in town before she gets here.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. So I want to make sure people understand that. The Office of Emergency Management, mm-hmm. Chief Padavano, Fire Chief Padavano was in charge. What's our take home from the Sandy hurricane? With him?
Well, you know, the chief, again, he did a remarkable job. I mean, he was commandeering crews to go we'd find out that one person didn't have electricity on a block, and he commandeer a crew, JCP&L crew, to come over and check it out. I think he worked 20 out of 24 hours, maybe 24 hours straight, and he was very, very weird. But again, a lot of people have commented on his ability to get things done during the emergency, and I think that by and large, and not to toot our own horns, I think the township did the best we could, what we had to work with. In the area of communication, I think there's a lot more improvement needed from JCP&L's point of view. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, because that's the easiest thing to do, but they really have to give us the information that we could pass on to our citizens. I don't mind being the bearer of bad news as long as it's accurate news. And if we're going to be without power for 2 weeks, I'd like to know that in the first few days, so I can tell residents so they can make other plans. But it was always tomorrow, or we can't tell you, we don't know the streets. And that's okay for a day or two, or people will get by for a day or two. After the 4th or 5th day, it gets old, and after 11, 12 days, it gets really old. So, and people just don't understand that. I got a lot of comments from residents saying, but my lines, all the lines in my neighborhood are underground. And that would be true, but the lines that feed those lines are above ground or come from a power station. So, again, all they wanted was accurate information, and I think JCP&L has the if they can't give it to us, then they need to do some infrastructure improvements themselves, because we're the facilitators of information, and people think that because I'm the mayor, I have all the information, or I should, and I think I should too, but I don't. And again, there's 566 mayors in the state of New Jersey, all saying the same thing, screaming for information. So it's an opportunity for us to get better communication with JCP&L.
Yeah, it seems that my perspective from JCP&L is the information just wasn't accurate. It just wasn't accurate. What they were telling us, we'd call up, hey, I'm still out of power. When are we going to get it back? And it was either 1 day or 3 days. And
they would give me percentages like, we have 77% of the town on. And that's fine if you're one of the 77%, but if you're one of the 28% or 27% that don't have 23% don't have that power, that doesn't make you feel any better.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I go out and I was putting out every day at 4 o'clock, I put out a blast for emails, because residents were emailing me because their cell phones may have worked, and we did have warming stations and power stations. So that email list grew from a couple of dozen to I think it was over close to 200 at the end of and when it was all said and done. But I couldn't give them much information except what I had. So again, if it's going to be a while, then just tell us the straight scoop so we can tell our people. Exactly. And people would say, I would make other plans if I knew. So.
No, it makes sense. Well, those are some really positive things that came out of the hurricane and what we had to go through as a community and come together. We're going to take a short break. Then let's come talk about what we need to improve. Okay. Some of the cons. What did we learn about Hurricane Sandy? Dr. Donald DeFabio with our mayor, Joe Bruno, with a Cup of Joe. We'll be right back.
RBIs and 36 homers. Swings at the first pitch and fouls it deep back into the stands.
Chill raw and prepared foods promptly. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back to the show. It's a Cup of Joe with Joe. So the community came together after Sandy. We really it was nice to see really people helping out other people, which is great. Chief Padavano did a great job. Police officers stepped up, did a great job. DPW, they were amazing as well. They got a lot of those down trees out of the way pretty quickly, I felt.
Yes, they did. They every one of the emergency services, the police, the fire, the DPW, everybody pulled their weight together. I spent a lot of time with the policemen at the fire department, because they're the best fed people in emergency. I got to tell you, they really know how to put the wives and the girlfriends and the mothers. They bring down some pretty good food. But we were down there almost constantly. That was our command center for FEMA. And it was, in that regard, a lot of people came together, and nobody, the police officers were dragging. They were working double shifts, sure. And with the gas crisis, it was the same thing with the gas. It wasn't a gas shortage; it was a power shortage that affected gas stations. And there was some problems with gas because everybody need them for their generators. But I mean, to put 4 and 5 police officers by a gas station for crowd control took away from what they were supposed to do or what we needed them to do. But I know Chief Mathis had the whole department on. I think they were working 12 hours on, 12 hours off in both shifts. So everybody was called back. A couple of people were on vacation. They came back voluntarily to serve. So again, everybody knew what was up and knew what they had to do to keep the residents as safe as possible.
That's great. Now, what about the cons? We had to learn something. It couldn't have been a perfect slam dunk OEM and emergency services 2 weeks.
No.
What did we learn? What do we have to improve?
Well, we definitely in the areas of communication, like I said before, we need to get everybody signed up for the reverse 911 so we get the word out. We have to always remember that people don't necessarily have, if they don't have power, they don't have a way to get the power back on. We need a better way of getting the word out that we have the power up stations like we had. We had Town Hall open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where people can come down and get warm because we did have heat. And the firehouse had heat, but we had plugs. I mean, we had extension cords with the strips on there. So and a lot of people did get to find out about it because we did have a nice crowd. I met a lot of people for the first time down there. I was there in that about 18 hours a day at Town Hall, greeting people. In fact, one Sunday, we just got up that morning and decided we had to do something. So we made 100 pounds of chili. And on the Sunday between right in the middle, I made it at the firehouse. I think the fire guys ate that too. But we were serving that to people in town, and we had a TV. Chief Mathis got us a TV. We wired it into the detective bureau, so we had a football game on Sunday. So as people, we tried to make the most of it. But communication is definitely the key thing. Even getting the word out. We had a shelter that was all set up at Columbia School. And we were all set to go. We had meals there, we had water there, we had cots ready to go, and we had no takers. So I don't know. The suspicion is, did we not get the word out that that was a shelter where people could stay overnight to get warm, or did people just not want to leave their houses, which we all know is a real problem throughout the state.
That second week, it started to get cold.
It was getting chilly.
First few nights weren't so bad.
Yeah, so we need to make sure that people are aware that we have the facilities in town for a shelter and any emergency, and designate that. And the way that the way that people found out about it is our police dispatch knew about, but nobody called and said they wanted. So we need to get the word out where it is and be very proactive. Make sure the word goes out on the 911, the reverse 911. That if you need a shelter. Here's where it is, and then ask people to get the word out if they know people are not computer friendly or don't have a phone, and they understand. They're getting the information to help get the word out, which they were doing on email. That's how my email list grew. I knew about 10 people, and all of a sudden they blasted out 10 people. So now all 20 people contacted me about something, and they were on there. So. We just need to get something on email blast is something we need to do more of, because that was. But between the two, I think we covered most of the town.
Okay.
So
now trees. A lot of trees came down. A lot of damage. Not a lot of flooding.
No, thank God.
What about residents dealing with their trees? Does FEMA get involved with helping with any of the expense and getting rid of the trees? Can they make any FEMA claims still? How does that all fall in?
FEMA is still active, and they'll be active for I would say probably another 30 days. In fact, we'll find that out and get the word out on the website in the next few days when FEMA is how long FEMA is going to be active. But they can go online right now at governmentassistance.gov.
Okay.
And get that, or just simply www.fema.gov, and the best way to put a claim in is to do it online if you're computer savvy, or you can call. There's an 800 number, and that information has gone out. But if anybody needs that, they can email me at jbruno@bhtwp.com, and I will get them the information again. Or they can call Town Hall. Because we have flyers down there. But even if you think that you have a claim, file it. You get a 9-digit number. Keep that number safe. That's your ID number. And every time you refer to or call FEMA, you need to have that 9-digit ID number. I would file it.
What types of things would qualify?
Well, if your house was hit, it was destroyed. If you had any damage at all. If you had to stay in a hotel for a period, you can put a claim in there.
I mean, I could have sent my in-laws to a hotel and gotten paid for it?
You might have, but you know, we unfortunately we had a resident who in the town who did pass away during an event. She slipped and fell and had an injury that she didn't recover from. But even some of the burial expenses are covered by FEMA. So there's a lot covered by FEMA, and the best way to find out is to call or go online and put a claim in. And at the worst that can happen is you have a 9-digit number that you can't use. But the best thing happens is you'll get some money back. They've really helped us a lot as a town because we put in all of our emergency appropriations through FEMA. They did help with the with reimbursement for the overtime for police and stuff like that. There's a process. It takes more than a few months, about 6 months to get reimbursed from, but they'll cover 75% of the expenses for a town.
Right, that's
And
excellent.
that helps.
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
one other thing that Tony and the OEM crew, Tony Panaval and the OEM crew do. I have to mention Patrolman Danny Quochi because he's the assistant OEM director, and between the two of them, they work tirelessly to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, so we get as much money as we can back.
Nice. So let's talk about a segue. A lot of trees came down, a lot of brush came down, and we're still finishing leaf cleanup. So what's some tips? What do people need to do if they still got some trees, they still got some leaves, it's going to snow in a couple of days, what do they need to do right now?
Dig big holes in the backyard and bury it. No, the leaf pickup is underway. I know I had 4 bags outside before I left for Thanksgiving break, excuse me, and they're gone when I came back. So we're going to try to get all these up in the next week or so, so they don't impact with the snow. The chipping, we were all done with the chipping this year on time, but we pledged, I made a decision that we were going to re-chip the entire town and get that brush out of the way. So folks, I can't tell you when it's going to happen. It will happen, and you're going to have to leave it out there because we'll come on your block. And again, the DPW have a lot of things going on right now, and but we'll get it all done. Last year after the storm, at the exact same time, I think we were done the week after New Year's. So it may be the week after New Year's again, and hopefully we don't get too much snow or any snow before that. But we will chip the small stuff. I mean, 4 inches in diameter. The big stuff, you really have to call somebody to have that taken away. We don't have the capabilities of dealing with large trees. In the area of trees, though, that's one area that I think all the residents, including myself, have to take some responsibility as residents and do some of our own tree trimming in the spring and early fall when the trees are not yet in bloom, and get rid of some of these limbs and look at things that are close to wires. Trees have a life just like anything else. They sprout, they live, and then they start declining and they die. And I thought last year most of the sick ones were gone, but I think there were a lot of healthy ones that the storm took. So
the storm took out a lot of things, including a lot of telephone poles, just snapped them in half.
So,
that amazed me.
But we have to, everybody loves the tree-lined community that we live in. I do too also, but when they get to a point where they're too tall, you have to say, okay, if that were to fall on my house, what kind of shape would I be in? Sure. And the decision may be to take some of these things, the big ones down, or trim them. Get a professional landscaper to trim down.
Well, I think that's going to be a topic for a show, maybe February or March. At least part of the show, get an arborist in here, somebody who knows how to educate people about their trees and to make those decisions, because you want to have the nice, old growth trees, but if they're a jeopardy to you, your house, or your neighbors, maybe it's time to make a change. So we're going to take another short break, have another sip of Joe with Joe, and then when we come back, we'll talk about what else is happening in Berkeley Heights. We want to get some topics that are new, interesting, and that people need to know about today.
Absolutely.
I'm Dr. Donald DeFabio with Mayor Joe Bruno, and we'll be right back.
The forest is a magical place for your whole family, with animals and fun all around. So discover the forest and explore all the wonder that's there. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
Hi, welcome back to the show. It's A Cup of Joe with Joe, and we're filming live. We're filming, but we're not airing live, but we're filming live from GL, live to tape at Governor Livingston. at the high school. So thanks very much to the GL crew for letting us come down and use their facilities. We appreciate it, and it's always a pleasure to be here. So a shout out to GL. Mayor, I know you got a lot of compliments on everything that was going on in town. Things did go as smooth as I guess could be expected. However, I know I was a little upset with what I would say the lack of integrity with JCP&L. We would call and they'd say, oh, you know, 1 day if you get your service back. Or we'd call and say, oh, 3 days. It was either 1 or 3 days, 1 or 3 days. And it got old. I realize it's not your fault that JCP&L was disingenuous, but there's got to be actions people can take to follow up if they have some concerns.
Well, the number one thing people can do is everybody has a boss, and in the state of New Jersey,
I can just call my wife or my mother.
or my wife. In the state of New Jersey, all the utilities are governed by the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, and they have a website, njbpu.gov. I think it's in everybody's best interest, in our town's best interest, for if all the residents would go on there, and there's a complaint form or a suggestion form, and tell the BPU of your experience. How long you had to wait, what was the conditions. That's the only way we're going to get people in Trenton to realize that we need some change in the way our utilities do business. Because I'm every day at 4 o'clock they would have a conference call, and we'd be on there with the president of Jersey Central Power and Lighting, and he always was very cordial. But after like day 3, I was starting to get a little testy on the conference call, and sometimes things would happen, and sometimes they would just give us lip service, for lack of a better word. They have got to give us more accurate information that we could pass on to our residents. Because I mean, if I had the magic switch in my office, I would have flicked it on the first day. So I just need to know what information I should be able to pass on, and if it's accurate. If it's going to be 2 weeks without power, then I need to tell people that, but I need to know for sure so people can make other arrangements. So again, the njbpu.gov website would be the best way to for all residents to put in their stories about the third 100-year storm in the last 18 months.
In your opinion, is this the new normal? Can we expect that they just don't have the infrastructure to evaluate and manage these types of storms, and it's just the new normal?
I think it is for the time being. I mean, this infrastructure wasn't built overnight. It was built over the last 75, 80 years. A lot of it is probably that old. We found out with some of our poles. I think it was original poles when they first developed Berkeley Heights. It's going to take a while. It's going to take some planning to get these things situated. Ideally, put everything on the ground would be great. But again, that's not going to happen overnight, and they shouldn't get rate increases until they start doing something, because they gave us a lot of lip service last year after the storm, saying they're going to make changes. I just don't think they thought something like this was going to happen 12 months later. Sure. So we need to see them in town actively pruning the trees by the wires. Again, I haven't seen that to the degree I'd like to in our town. And it was one of 500 towns, so I think the state needs to take the leadership role in that and start demanding they treat us better.
So to get JCP&L to make some changes so that every time we don't have a major storm that we're out for 3, 6, or 14 days of electricity, it really is going to have to come from pressure from the state through this agency.
From the state through the agency, and again, all the mayors together, which we're banding together and really raising a fuss over it, because we just can't keep on going through this time after time.
Yeah. So, as a mayor, do you think you have any input now with JCP&L? Do you have any relationship with them, or like you said, you were having conference calls at 4 o'clock, every day. But what about now? Now the crisis is over. Do they say, okay, see you later?
Haven't heard from them since the end of the storm. And the last conference call we had, I put the suggestion in that they would, as a sign of goodwill, would help the towns with removal of the trees, since they had all these tree crews here. And they told me it was a good suggestion and they would consider it. And
Take it under advisement.
It's been a while, but and I've called them once to remind them about it, but I'm going to keep the pressure on them because some of these things are just too big for the town to take.
Well, so that's a proactive step that we as a community can take to help put some pressure on the utility companies because it's getting old. It's getting old.
Agreed.
And I think everybody pretty much feels that, this is the new normal. Yeah. So now, good news. We're rolling into December.
Yes.
And I think he had a pretty busy weekend last weekend. He was in Macy's on Fifth Avenue, but I think he's available coming up next weekend. And rumor has it, we might have a special guest coming up this week.
It's not rumor. I've heard from Santa himself, and he will be in Berkeley Heights on December 1st, this Saturday in the morning. He will be greeting all the children. And asking him, after he gets my wish list, but he'll be greeting all the children on Saturday at Town Hall. We'll welcome Santa, give him the key to the city, key to the township, and then he will be there to greet. We'll have cookies and hot chocolate available for everybody who comes down, and I believe that's from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., and then Santa has to go back and feed the reindeers, but he's told me that since he loves Berkeley Heights so much, he'll be here at when the sun goes down to help us light the Christmas tree. So in the evening, we'll have Santa, and we'll have some fireworks as we always do. Again, hot chocolate, some cookies, and we'll light our tree and see a short firework display. That's all this Saturday, December 1st.
Yeah, it's a very full day.
Yeah, and then December starts progressing with all the shopping, and I would encourage all the folks to stay as local as you can with your shopping. A lot of good merchants have some great things to buy. And then January 1st, we start a new year, and we will have our reorganization on January 1st and swear in our two re-elected council people and start a new year. In between that, we'll start tackling the budget for 2013. So a lot of things happening from the governing body in the next 30, 40 days or so.
Two things. First of all, 2% gap. Does it still stay tight even with all this Sandy stuff?
It still stays tight, although a lot of the expenses are now outside the cap, which is a nice way of saying that you could spend money for relief. You have a little wiggle room, but the best thing we can do, and we've done, is make sure that we get our FEMA requests in and fill out our FEMA forms, which we've done already. Last year, we've gotten over $300,000 in reimbursement from FEMA for last year's storms, and although we didn't quite spend that much this year, we try to get as much back as we can.
Oh, that makes sense. So before we remind people to get in touch with you for topics for our next Cup of Joe with Joe, I just want to touch briefly on what you said. Shop local. I mean, yes, you might be able to save some shipping and handling. Yes, you might be able to save a few dollars here and there if you go online or you go to a mega superstore. But if you don't shop local, if you don't support the local businesses here, they're not going to be here. And it's going to be a negative impact in the community.
The other thing you should consider is, you spend time and you spend gas and a lot of time going to a mall, that money could be spent on maybe the extra pennies that a local merchant will shop. But it'd be much more convenient. You'll be stimulating the economy, and you won't have to drive as far and look for that parking spaces, because we have a lot of parking spaces in town. So again,
no charge.
And no charge, right? So if you can,
not like some towns we know.
That's right. So if you could shop locally, I know our merchants would appreciate it, and it'd be good for our local economy.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. So, Mayor, your email address is? jbruno@bhtwp.com. jbruno@berkeleyheights.com. Well, there you go, people. You get in touch with the mayor. Let him know what you want to hear, what you want us to talk about, because a cup of Joe with Joe is a great cup of coffee with Joe, but it's about you serving the community and getting out the word about what's happening and what you want to hear. And the questions can be hardballs, so send them and I'll be happy to pitch them.
Absolutely.
Mayor, thanks for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime.
And thank you very much for taking care of the community during the emergency crisis with Sandy. You guys really stepped up and we appreciate it.
We appreciate that. It's our pleasure. It's our obligation, but it's our pleasure to do what we can.
You guys did a great job.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Donald DeFabio for Mayor Joe Bruno. Thanks for tuning in.